But you've been given the opportunity to post a bond with bond conditions, and you're not doing those things you need to do.
Ever since the beginning of the trial persecuting Hernandez Govan, the main suspect in the murder of young Dolph, there have been several developments showing Govan's defiance and judges' relentless efforts to put him in his place. In the latest update, Govan was presented before the court, where some shocking details were revealed concerning his conduct connected to granting unauthorized interviews. In addition to the gravity of the crime in question, Govan could be further digging into his fall with his activities after his bond was paid. Hernandez Govan's trial update. Hernandez Govan was the third suspect arrested in connection to the murder of rapper Young Dolph, which happened in November 2021. Leading up to Govan's alleged connection and involvement in the murder case, he had had more than his fair share of the world of crimes and encounters with the legal system of the United States. In fact, it is safe to say that Govan was mostly associated with gang-related crimes. Born and raised in a neighborhood plagued by crime and violence, Govan grew up in Orange Mound, a community in Memphis, Tennessee. From a young age, Govan was exposed to the harsh realities of his surroundings. Poverty, drugs, and gang activity were all too common in his neighborhood, and it didn't take long for him to become entangled in this dangerous world. As a teenager, Govan found himself drawn to the allure of street life. He became involved in local gangs, seeking a sense of belonging and protection in a world that seemed to offer little else. It was during this time that he began to develop a reputation for his involvement in criminal activities. Govan's run-ins with the law date back to the early 1990s. In January 1990, he was charged with possessing a controlled substance with the intent to manufacture, deliver, or sell a Class E felony. This marked the beginning of a pattern that would repeat itself over the years. In May 2000, Govan found himself facing similar charges once again. He was charged with possessing a controlled substance with the intent to manufacture, deliver, or sell. Court records revealed that he pled guilty to this charge and was sentenced to 2 years behind bars. It seemed that Govan's involvement in the drug trade was becoming a recurring theme in his criminal history. August 2003 brought another serious charge for Govan. He was charged with being a convicted felon in possession of a handgun. Court records indicate that he pled not guilty to this charge, and further investigation is needed to determine if he was ultimately sentenced in this case. The possession of a firearm by a convicted felon added another layer of danger to Govan's criminal profile. November 2003 saw Govan facing yet another charge, this time for possession of a controlled substance. Once again, he pled guilty to the charge, further solidifying his reputation as a repeat offender. In April 2008, Govan pled guilty to aggravated assault, a charge that carries significant weight. He was sentenced to 3 years behind bars, serving as a stark reminder of the violent tendencies that have marked his criminal history. The details surrounding this assault are still under investigation, but it is clear that Govan's actions have left a trail of pain and suffering in his wake. Adding to his troubled past, Govan was charged with aggravated assault once again in May of the previous year. He stands accused of beating up his former partner, an act of violence that showcases the destructive nature of his personal relationships. As we piece together the puzzle of Hernandez Govan's life, it becomes evident that his criminal history is a reflection of a troubled individual caught in a cycle of violence and illegal activities. From drug charges to weapons possession and assault, Govan's past offenses paint a picture of a man deeply entangled in a world of crime. Possible motive for Young Dolph's murder. The world of music was left reeling when news broke of the brutal murder of Young Dolph, a rising star in the rap industry. The incident took place nearly a year ago at Makeda's Cookies in Memphis, leaving fans and fellow artists in shock and disbelief. But as the investigation unfolded, a chilling connection began to emerge, pointing towards Hernandez Govan's alleged involvement in this heinous crime. Govan's name surfaced as the third arrest connected to Young Dolph's murder, sending shockwaves through the community. He now faces charges of first-degree murder, criminal attempted first-degree murder, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The gravity of these charges cannot be understated, as they carry severe consequences if proven guilty. What makes Govan's case even more shocking is the revelation of a conspiracy charge. District Attorney Steve Moore confirmed that his team believes Govan acted on behalf of someone else, allegedly carrying out a plan to have Young Dolph killed. According to documents obtained, the planning for this heinous act began several months before the rapper's untimely death, specifically in June of that year. Investigators believe that Govan, along with 2 other men, Justin Johnson, also known as Straight Drop, and Cornelius Smith, developed a sinister plot to murder Young Dolph. Johnson and Smith have been in jail for months, charged with the murder, according to online court documents. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, revealing a web of conspiracy and violence. Govan's last known address is in the 1100 block of Bradley in Orange Mound, the very same block where the white Mercedes-Benz used by the gunman was found. This chilling connection adds another layer of intrigue to the case. case, leaving investigators and the public questioning the extent of Govan's involvement. As the investigation continues, the music industry and the community at large are left grappling with the shocking reality that someone within their midst may have played a role in the tragic demise of a talented young artist. So what could have been the possible motive had to be involved in Dolph's death? This can be split into two, with one motive being his possible affiliation to the late brother of Yo Gotti, Big Juke. During his lifetime, Juke was known to have been an expressive hater of Dolph due to Gotti's longtime feud with the rapper. By 2013, Dolph's collaboration project with Gucci Mane caught the ear of Yo Gotti, an iconic figure in the Memphis rap scene. Gotti, who had established his own label, Collective Music Group, CMG, in 2012, saw potential in Dolph's talent and reached out with an offer. However, Dolph had already invested significant time, effort, and money into his own career. He turned down Gotti's offer, determined to build his own empire and avoid riding someone else's wave. Dolph's decision to decline Gotti's offer showcased his desire to create his own lane in the industry. He understood the importance of establishing his own brand and didn't want his success to be attributed solely to Gotti's influence. In interviews, Dolph expressed his respect for Gotti's similar journey of building his own empire, acknowledging that Gotti understood his decision. Despite the respect shown in public, tensions began to simmer behind the scenes. Static between Dolph and Gotti started to emerge, hinting at a deeper conflict. However, for a couple of years, no significant incidents occurred between the two artists. Dolph remained focused on his grind, achieving double platinum success with his collaboration with OT Genesis, while Gotti shifted his attention to signing and mentoring Black Youngsta, another Memphis rapper who had overcome his own struggles in the streets. Black Youngsta's rise in the rap game added fuel to the fire. In February 2016, Dolph released his debut album, boldly titled King of Memphis. This album title didn't sit well with Gotti, who had previously referred to himself as the King of Memphis. The clash over the album title intensified the brewing tension between the two artists. Dolph made the beef official by taking to Twitter, stating, "Bra went from being my #1 fan and wanting to sign me to being my biggest hater, #facts." Fans anticipated a response from Gotti, given his history of engaging in rap beefs. However, instead of directly addressing Dolph, Gotti chose to let his newly signed artist, Black Youngsta, do the dissing on his behalf. Black Youngsta wasted no time in joining the feud, publicly calling Dolph a derogatory term on social media. He even made threats, claiming that when he saw Dolph, he would smack the shit out of him. Black Youngsta's actions escalated the tension, and he even rolled up to Dolph's neighborhood with a group of his associates. However, no significant altercation occurred during this encounter. Dolph, not one to back down, took to Instagram to air out his grievances with Gotti. He accused Gotti of hating on Memphis rappers and orchestrating the situation with Black Youngsta. Dolph even claimed that Gotti had put the police on him, further intensifying the beef. The feud continued to escalate through music. Dolph's remix of Trouble's track Ready contained lyrics that fans linked to Black Youngsta's song Heavy. Dolph took direct shots at both Black Youngsta and Gotti, calling out their actions and questioning their authenticity. Black Youngsta responded with his own diss track Shake Some, where he called out Dolph by name and made derogatory remarks. The tension between Dolph and Gotti reached its peak when Dolph released the controversial track Play With Yo. In this wild diss track, Dolph claimed to have been involved with Gotti's baby mama and insulted Gotti's brother. The lyrics were provocative and disrespectful, taking the beef to a new level. Gotti, instead of responding with his own song, took to Twitter to dismiss Dolph's claims. He mentioned his business partnerships with Lil Reed and Jay-Z, seemingly brushing off the accusations. This tweet, along with a dismissive blah blah blah, added another layer of tension to the already heated feud. The feud between young Dolph and Yo Gotti seemed to reach a boiling point, with tensions escalating both in music and real-life encounters. However, after Dolph survived the shooting incident, both artists seemed to shift their focus to their respective careers. A second possible motive for Govan involved the Trilla Mafia and the murky connections of murders and affiliations in the gangster circle. Since 2018, a series of gang-related murders led to the demise of young and rising rappers like Caltri Boone, J Money, and D Money, all of whom had affiliations to the Trilla Mafia. It is worthy to note that Govan is also affiliated with Trilla Mafia, which is owned by CEO Teezy. It happened that the mother of J Money and D Money, in her grief, promised to get back at all those who murdered her sons. She was particularly vocal about getting back at D Money's killer. In the long run, she believed rapper Big Un CC was involved, and it was an eye-opening experience for her when young Dolph signed Big UNCC, a former CMG artiste. Henderson felt betrayed by Dolph because he had a great relationship with her son. Enter Hernandez Govan, who appears to have a close friendship with Henderson. The pair's friendship was quite obvious from their social media interaction. interactions, ranging from Govan asking Henderson to make him meatloaf to them, hinting that they text each other often. In retrospect, Kimsia Henderson could have enlisted his help in taking out the man she believed betrayed her son, which is young Dolph. With authorities fully involved in the case of the late rapper's demise, it was only a matter of time before the assailants were apprehended. In 2022, while the case was at its early stage, Memphis police indicted Justin Johnson and Cornelia Smith alongside a third person, Shundale Barnett. Barnett faced charges of accessory after the fact to first-degree murder, as he was accused of assisting Johnson while he evaded law enforcement in Indiana. Authorities received hundreds of leads and support, which eventually resulted in the cross-country manhunt of one of the suspects. Johnson was apprehended near Terre Haute, Indiana, days after authorities revealed a warrant and reward for his capture. Smith was indicted after being detained at DeSoto County, Mississippi, on a different charge. A fourth person, Jermacus. Johnson was also indicted and charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, as he was believed to have provided the assailants with payment after Dolph's death. The progression of Govan's trial. 1 year after Dolph's death, Govan was arrested as a prime suspect and the mastermind behind Dolph's death. Since then, he has been on trial as different developments unfold. During his first court appearance, Govan and his attorney insisted that he was not involved in the murder of young Dolph. As the heavy wooden doors of the courtroom swung open, all eyes turned towards the figure entering the room. Hernandez Govan, the man at the center of the young Dolph murder case, stepped forward, his face a mask of composure. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with tension, as everyone present anxiously awaited his plea. Govan's lawyer, a seasoned defense attorney known for his passionate advocacy, stood by his side, ready to defend his client's innocence. The judge, dressed in a black robe, sat at the elevated bench, his gaze fixed on the defendant. The room was filled with a hushed silence, broken only by the shuffling of papers and the occasional cough. As the first section of the court proceedings came to a close, the judge announced that the case would be adjourned. With a firm voice, Govan declared, "Not guilty, Your Honor." The words hung in the air, sending shockwaves through the courtroom. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the spectators, who had expected a different plea. The judge maintained his stoic expression, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the defendant before him. The defense attorney, his voice filled with conviction, began to outline the reasons behind Govan's plea. He argued that there was no concrete evidence linking his client to the murder of young Dolph. The attorney emphasized the importance of presumption of innocence and urged the court to consider the lack of substantial proof against Govan. The prosecution, on the other hand, presented a compelling case, highlighting the motive and the circumstantial evidence that pointed towards Govan's involvement. They argued that the defendant had a personal vendetta against young Dolph, which led to the tragic events that unfolded. The prosecution's case was built on witness testimonies, surveillance footage, and forensic evidence. The next significant development in the murder case was when Govan got released on bond. The courtroom was abuzz with anticipation as the bond hearing for Hernandez Govan, a prime suspect in the murder case of rapper Young Dolph, commenced. District Attorney Steve Mulroy wasted no time in presenting his case against Govan, aiming to convince the court that he should remain behind bars. Mulroy began by reiterating the initial accusation that Govan had solicited the killing of Young Dolph. However, he then dropped a bombshell, revealing that investigators had uncovered new information about Govan's role in the crime. While the specifics of this information were not disclosed, Mulroy emphasized its significance in shaping the court's decision. The defense, led by Govan's attorney, countered the district attorney's claims. They argued that the new information presented by the prosecution was insufficient to justify Govan's continued detention. Additionally, they highlighted Govan's medical conditions, which they claimed posed a risk to his well-being in jail. Mulroy shared about the bond placement. "We have come into some information about Mr. Govan's role and medical conditions that makes us think this is the best resolution in order to get justice for the case." The court carefully considered both sides of the argument. They weighed the seriousness of the charges against Govan, the potential danger he might pose to society, and the new information that had come to light. Ultimately, the court cited safety and medical concerns as two of the factors that influenced their decision to grant Govan a $90,000 bond. With his bond affected, Govan was placed on house arrest, but as time went on, he sought to get his 24-hour restriction relaxed. This was among some of the requests he made despite the degree of his alleged crime. In February 2023, Govan appeared before Judge Lee Coffey, revealing that he wanted his bond restrictions relaxed. He sought to be allowed to go shopping, work full-time, and also travel without restrictions. However, the judge vehemently opposed the request while stating his own reasons. Most most of which questioned Govan's safety while his trial was still very much active. The judge stated, "You're on those restrictions for a reason, and part of those reasons is for your own safety." He went on to emphasize the dangers Govan might face, noting, "Memphis-Shelby County, Tennessee is the first most violent metropolitan area in the country. This case has generated a substantial amount of publicity, and if you're running around free, somebody might be trying to kill you." While facing the weight of a murder trial, one would expect Hernandez Govan to focus solely on his defense. However, Govan shocked both the courtroom and the public when he made a bold move to seek a reduced curfew from the judge overseeing his case. This audacious request left many questioning his motives and priorities. The court document read, "This request is being made to allow Defendant Govan to seek gainful employment while out on bail. Defendant Govan would like to be employed so that he can help support his wife and children." Govan's legal team argued that a reduced curfew would allow him to actively seek employment, presenting him with an opportunity to turn his life around. They claimed that Govan's desire to find a job demonstrated his commitment to rehabilitation and reintegration into society. The defense further emphasized that Govan's employment prospects were severely limited by the strict curfew imposed upon him. They argued that without the ability to venture out during certain hours, Govan's chances of securing gainful employment were significantly hindered. By seeking a reduced curfew, Govan aimed to prove his willingness to take responsibility for his actions and contribute positively to society. However, the prosecution vehemently opposed Govan's request, arguing that the severity of the charges against him warranted strict supervision and restrictions. They contended that a reduced curfew would not only compromise public safety, but also undermine the seriousness of the murder trial. The prosecution painted Govan as a dangerous individual who should be closely monitored and restricted to prevent any potential harm. The judge, tasked with weighing the arguments presented by both sides, faced a difficult decision. On one hand, granting Govan a reduced curfew could potentially offer him a chance at redemption and reintegration. On the other hand, it could be seen as a lenient gesture that disregarded the gravity of the charges against him. Judge Jennifer Mitchell stated her decision, "I don't see any reason at all why this court should relax those conditions and say, Mr. Govan, we're going to let you go back to being a fully fledged person with no restrictions at all, go to work when you want to, go shopping when you want to, leave the county when you want go to other places when you want to." Govan was also accused of taking trips without permission out of Shelby County, knowing he was not allowed to. The judge added, "That's a violation of your bond. I don't know who gave you permission, but guess you hear from Judge Coffey. It can't be done unless approved by this court." Despite facing stern warnings and reminders of repercussions for further violations, Govan once again appeared before the court. This time, it had to do with some eye-opening revelations he made in a recent interview. Govan joined YouTuber Stan G in a virtual chat session where he opened up about his daughter's death and his upbringing in Memphis. Some of his notable and suspicious utterances came when he was asked about being involved with the CMG crew. CMG is Yo Gotti's record label that signed bug artists like Glorilla. Yo Gotti ran the company alongside his brother Big Juke, who was connected to Govan. After he was asked about his affiliation with CMG, Govan evaded the question, choosing not to answer. About his daughter, Latu Cash Desto's death, Govan stated that her death has nothing to do with Dolph's case. Despite being pretty tight-lipped during his interview with Stan G, Govan got in a lot of trouble with the judge presiding over his case, and she did not hesitate to call him out on his excesses. As the trial of Hernandez Govan over the murder of young Dolph progresses, the atmosphere in the courtroom gets more tense. The Shelby County judge wasted no time in reminding Govan of the gravity of the charges against him. With a stern expression, the judge addressed Govan, emphasizing that there was no need to reiterate the seriousness of the allegations. The judge further pointed out that Govan was currently out on bond, but the court had imposed strict stipulations to ensure his compliance with the legal process. However, the judge expressed concern that Govan seemed to be playing fast and loose with these stipulations, which did not sit well with the court. To add fuel to the fire, the judge revealed that a concerned citizen had brought to their attention that Govan had been participating in interviews, regardless of whether they were related to the case or not. This revelation deeply troubled the judge, as it raised questions about Govan's understanding of the gravity of the situation. The judge emphasized that being in jail would make it easier to supervise Govan, but he had been given the opportunity to post bond under specific conditions, which Govan seemed to be neglecting.
You have filed a motion through your attorney asking me to review your bond conditions. And before we could ever do that, I get a message from a concerned citizen that you're out doing interviews.
The judge addressed Govan on a stern note. The displeased judge continued, "Whether you're talking about this case or not, you're doing interviews. The court doesn't like the fact that you feel free enough to do interviews because what could be happening is that you could be in jail, and it's a whole lot easier to supervise you there. But you've been given the opportunity to post a bond with bond conditions, and you're not doing those things you need to do." The judge's frustration with Govan's actions became evident as she firmly stated that Govan should not be conducting any interviews with anyone for any reason. Despite Govan's attorney assuring the judge that nothing about the case was discussed in the interview, the judge made it abundantly clear that Govan should refrain from making any public statements. In a stern tone, the judge emphasized that Govan should be in the house, meaning he should not be attending funerals or going anywhere else. The judge's words were direct and left no room for interpretation. Govan was expected to comply with these instructions immediately. Govan, speaking through his attorney, acknowledged the judge's instructions and confirmed his understanding of the house arrest conditions. However, the judge took the opportunity to address another issue: Govan's absence from court the previous day. The judge reminded Govan that he was supposed to be present on the docket, regardless of whether his attorney was there or not. Govan explained that his attorney had instructed him not to come, but the judge dismissed this explanation, reiterating that Govan should have been present. The judge made it clear that Govan's presence in court was non-negotiable. As the conversation neared its end, the judge set a date for the review of Govan's bond conditions, March 1st. This date would serve as an opportunity to evaluate whether Govan had been adhering to the stipulations set by the court. Before concluding, the judge issued a final warning to Govan, urging him not to give any reason for the bond to be revoked. The judge emphasized that if Govan complied with the conditions and avoided any further complications, there would be no need for these conversations in the future. With a firm tone, the judge requested Govan to understand the gravity of the situation and to ensure that he did not give the court any reason to revoke his bond. The judge's words carried a weight of authority, leaving no room for doubt about the consequences of non-compliance. And with that, the courtroom drama surrounding Hernandez Govan's trial over young Dolph's murder case reached a momentary pause. The judge's words echoed in the air, serving as a reminder of the seriousness of the charges and the importance of following the court's instructions. This is yet another major moment in the quest to find and convict the killers of young Dolph. Check the next cards for more peculiar twists and turns in the rap world. Bye for now.